Hey guys, hope you're doing well. My name is Emma and it is monthly updates time. So I'm going to take you through all of my knitting projects that I've been working on over the last month. I've got one finished piece and a few whips to go through. I've got a few items. I feel like this is going to be a long one, but I'm going to try my bestest to talk through these quickly, but we'll see. So let's start off with our finished item. Alright, first finished piece. This won't be surprising if you watched last month's update. I was so close to finishing it. But this is my completed Weekend Glow sweater, which is a pattern by Julia Prio. It calls for DK weight, or it says DK worsted, but the sample yarn is Lima, which I would consider as DK weight. And it's knit on 4mm needles. In terms of construction for this one, it's very, very straightforward. It is a raglan. It's knit to top down, and you've got this really nice, like 5x1 broken rib pattern all over. For this one, you just simply, cast on for your neckline as you usually would. You do a couple rows of 1x1 ribbing. You then move in to establish your wider 5x1 rib while starting to establish your raglan increases. The pattern does instruct you to do like some rapid increases, then some like standard increases like every other round, and then some rapid increases again to give like a little bit of a curvy shape. You can kind of tell I did not do that on mine. Once you finish your yoke section, she gets you to add a little bit of extra fabric on just the back section. So you knit back and forth flat for a little bit, and that's kind of replacing shaping in a way to give the back a little bit more fabric. You then separate body sleeves. You just knit down both body and sleeves, no decreases or anything throughout your sleeve, continuing the pattern down until you're happy with the length for both of those areas. And then you finish off in your 1x1 rib again and bind off however you choose. So just a reminder on my piece, I use Bendigo Wool & Mill's Whisper 8-ply yarn, which is their merino yarn. It is superwash. I have put this in the washing machine, no problemo, washed up fine. It is in the color 2511 coal, by the way. In terms of my piece, what I ended up doing with it, I did initially knit a yoke and I was trying to stick to 4mm needles. Realized that I thought I was initially engaged, but I wasn't getting the yoke depth, and it was coming out a little bit too small. So I was kind of like one stitch off. So I did size up my needles to a 4.5, and now everything's come out like pretty much perfect. So I did knit mine in a size medium, but I did make quite a few mods to my piece. So I did adjust my neckline, so I made it just a little bit wider than what the pattern called for. As I touched on, I didn't do the raglan increases as specified in the pattern. I just kind of did standard raglans because I needed the depth, so I didn't want to do rapid increases. What else did I do? I replaced the shaping with German short rows, which I'm super impressed that worked out like first time, like amazing. I did start my German short rows in the shoulder section, which means I did have to adjust the placement of my front raglans a little bit, like the stitch count, to account for the skipped increase rounds on these front ones, so that the front and back still ended up with like the same stitch count. And I did all of my finishings in a tubular. So I did tubular cast on and tubular bind off on mine, and I gotta say I am super happy with my cast on and bind offs on this particular piece. I think they are like by far the neatest I have ever done. So super happy with all those mods. All up, this took me how long? 89.5 hours, and I knit it over the course of 3 weeks. And I used up pretty much all of the yarn. I had allocated 3 balls, those big Bendigo balls, to this particular project. I have about 30 grams left over, so all up this costs me $76.38, which is an excellent price point for this jumper. Now my thoughts on this piece, we'll start with the pattern first. I think I've already touched on this in the past. The pattern is very, very beginner friendly. Like everything is spelled out. It really holds your hand. There's a video tutorial and everything that goes along with it. These patterns are targeted towards beginners, like that's her target market. So go in that knowing that. My very first jumper that I started knitting was a pattern by the same designer, and I appreciated every little bit of hand holding that she gave because it made it so easy to follow and construct a jumper and understand everything that you're meant to be doing. Now having a little bit more experience, looking at the large volume of instructions that are on the page is almost confused me. I was like, what am I doing? Like, I'm just looking for the key steps in my piece. So if you're a more advanced beginner, I still recommend this pattern for sure. You'll probably be able to modify it to the fit or anything that you want to change in the pattern. You just need to read through and find the key kind of stitch counts and steps for it, but because it's a pretty basic raglan ultimately. But yeah, definitely recommend. It's not complicated at all. In terms of like the knitting experience, I enjoyed this one. I think it's just a combination of this being like a black yarn, and I'm just obviously black is classic. I love black color. And also just this like wide 5x1 rib. It just looks really nice. I feel like it's a very sophisticated, classic looking knit. I don't even know if it's really showing up in the camera at the moment. But I really enjoyed knitting it. It was easy. It wasn't too long because I was using 4.5mm needles. The stitch kind of keeps it engaging enough, but like it's not hard at the same time. The yarn was really nice to work with. It feels so nice. This yarn feels so nice and soft. I say that every single time with every single project that I finish, but like every single yarn I use just ends up getting like softer and nicer as I go along. But this one is it's so comfortable to wear against the skin and everything. The only downside to this yarn is that it was a wee bit inconsistent when I was knitting with it. There were a lot of like fluffy, tufty bits in the yarn. So the yarn would kind of go like thick and thin. It's not noticeable in the finished piece at all. There was one section that I had to like cut the yarn because it went so thick and matted. Like it looked like kind of like joins. Either it's like kind of pilling on itself or there were just lots and lots of joins in the yarn. I'm not sure what it was, but there were just this kind of like matted up kind of like fluffy bits. Which was really disappointing because it was really inconsistent to knit with. But yeah, like I said, thankfully it hasn't shown up the end piece. Could because it's black, you can't really tell. I do have the same yarn in a light color, and I haven't noticed the same issue in the lighter color that I noticed in the black. And it was like consistent across all the balls that I opened in the black as well. So that was kind of annoying. And whilst this yarn is like really nice to work with, it feels great and everything like that, I love everything about this yarn, but it does pill. It pills quite badly, actually. I have worn this twice. Actually, I wore it again today out as well. I just had to swap jumpers for this video because I needed to like show this jumper. So I've worn this a grand total of 3 times. It's been through the washing machine once, which was like my initial blocking. So I haven't washed it again since wearing it. And it is just pilling. Like it looks worn. And it looked worn basically after one wear. There's a bit where I had my bag and where the strap is, like I was just sitting on the tram on the way to work, like barely moving. And that was only like 40 minutes each way, barely moving. And it's like pilled in this like little chunk here where the bag strap was like sitting, where it's basically sitting still. Like the smallest amount of movement and wear has just made this like pill up and look so worn, which is a bit of a shame because like it looks so good and crisp and like so polished when I had finished it. And now it just looks a little bit like a jumper that you've had in your wardrobe for quite some time when actually it's brand spanking new. But I guess that's like yarn. I don't know if I should be mad at it or not. But I am hoping that this is like an initial pill, and then if I like depill it, that it will be fine after that, but we'll have to wait and see over time. Other than the fact that the yarn's pilled and it was a little bit inconsistent to work with, I love everything about this jumper. Like there's nothing I would change. If I was to make this again, I would do all the same modifications, the German short rows and everything like that, widening the neckline, all that jazz. I would just do exactly the same because I think the end result is fantastic, and I love it. And I also say that about all my knits when I finish them too. But this one, like I said, I've literally only just finished it and I've worn it several times already. So, but the seasons are like, we're starting to get a lot warmer now. So I'm trying to get as much wear as I can while I can. And I'm pretty sure you can still see makeup on this because, well, it wouldn't be one of my finished projects unless it had makeup on it. Let's be real. All right, let's get into some whips. First up, we have our Zipper Sweater Light, which is a pattern by Petite Knit. So it's DK weight version of the zipper sweater. It's meant to be knit on 4mm needles. You know the construction of this one by now, guys. Stop down, raglan style, all over stock knit. You start by casting on for your ribbed collar. You just basically knit a really long piece of ribbing, fold and seam that together. You then establish your yoke section, so you start working your raglans. You do some short rows on the back to shape the neckline. Knit down until you reach the right yoke depth, separate your body and sleeves. You knit the body down until you're happy with the length. Actually, sorry, I forgot to say, you are working flat for the yoke until you get the right depth for your zipper. Then you join in the round, and then you finish your yoke, separate, all that jazz. Knit your body down, finish with the ribbing. Pick up your sleeve stitches that were on hold, knit your sleeve, doing some gradual decreases down the sleeve, finish a 1x1 rib on your cuffs as well. And then you got to knit like a little bit of facing in for your zipper, and then you install your zipper, and she's finished and done and dusted. So for mine, this is where we're at. We've hit a major milestone, as you can see. I'm excited. But let me remind you of the yarn. So this is the Temu supposedly 100% cashmere yarn. I've had it double along with the supporting cotton that it came with, and it's in the color number 37 coffee. Excuse me. I'm off gauge. I have sized up in my needles. So I'm using 4.5. I've sized up basically 0.5 millimeter for all the needles. But because I am still a little bit off gauge, I am knitting this in a extra large. So that should give me approximately 23 centimeters of positive ease. I did also size up to the larger size for the collar, so to make it really like kind of big and loose. I'm feeling like that was a mistake now. I probably should have just stuck to the extra large size after all. There's only a few stitches difference between them, but I'll talk about the issues in a second. But yeah, I did size up, and then to account for the extra stitches, I just did one less set of raglan increases, and that balanced out all my stitch count. Oh, sorry, I am choking on my words today. Since you last saw her, we've done some things on her. That sounds a bit wrong, but I've spent a total of 91.5 hours on this piece so far, an extra 20 hours since you last saw her. And since you last saw her, we'll address the elephant in the room. We now have a zipper installed, which, oops, if I can get it, functions. So that took me a little while to install, to be honest. I found it a lot more fiddly than I did with the first zipper sweater that I did. I don't know why, because everything was exactly the same. But the facing fabric, and it was just, the fabric was curling a lot more than it did last time, and it was just really hard to get it to lie flat and seam it in. So really fiddly, but we got there in the end. She's now installed and looking pretty good. I then finished off my sleeve, so I've got the ribbing all done and I bound off. However, I don't think I like this sleeve. So I picked up for my other sleeve, and this one I did a couple things different. Let me lean in. First of all, I learned that I was picking up my stitches wrong, and this time I picked up my stitches correctly on the underarm, and you can see how much better, hopefully you can see how much better that underarm looks. I might have to maybe get some zoomed in footage, but look at that. That looks great, does it not? Like, you can barely see any like hole there in that underarm, and because I did that provisional cast on, there's no like seam or anything in the underarm. Like, it looks really nice. Really nice. I'm suddenly become a fan of that provisional underarm cast on now that I know how to pick up my stitches correctly. And I'll have a like little tutorial linked down below. I'm pretty sure I talked about this last month as well, but yeah, I was picking up my stitches wrong and I was still getting holes and looking messy and everything like that. So that was the first thing I did differently. And then I changed the rate of my decreases on the sleeve. So I'm, as you can see, like almost done with my ribbing on this particular one. I literally have a few more rounds to do and I can bind off this particular sleeve. So the difference, sorry, let me come back over here. The difference between the two sleeves is this one I did decreases every 12 rounds, and then I did an extra few decreases to get to the right stitch count for the cuff and a round before I did the cuff. Does that make sense? So I kind of cinched in a little bit more at that cuff. Now I did this on my first zipper sweater light and I really liked how that looked. But then when I put this one on, I was like, I don't know if I'm loving the cinched in cuff. And I think it's because the whole piece is quite oversized. It's a little bit more oversized than it was the first one was. And I think that's what's kind of contributed to it. I feel like my sleeve doesn't suit the body kind of situation. So for the second sleeve, I've spaced out my my decreases a little bit differently. Now, I did put it into ChatGPT because I knew how many rows I needed to kind of knit. I did extend the length of the sleeve a little bit longer than the sleeve as well, because I feel like this one, once I had finished all the ribbing and stuff, I was like, actually, it could probably do another couple centimeters on it if I'm being honest. So I did do a few additional rounds on this one to give it a little bit extra length. And I put into ChatGPT, this is my row count and I need to get this many decreases in. And it told me how many rows to do it. It's like you have to do X at 11 rows apart and then X at 10 rows apart. And so I was like, great. Anyways, I had done all of the 11 sets that I need to do and I'd moved into like doing the 10 row sets, and I was probably about halfway done on my sleeve. And that's when I realized that actually I'm one set of decreases short. So ChatGPT assumes that you're starting with a decrease and then it tells you how many more decreases you need to do. So it fucked me over there a little bit. So at that point, so about halfway down the sleeve, I just had to like readjust my decrease rate. So now the like ones that are closer to the cuff are like 8 rows apart, I think. Yeah. And so my decreases are just all over the show. Like this one's all 12, this one's 11, 10, and 8 rows apart. Like it's just all different. I think it's fine. I don't think you can tell. I don't know how are you meant to tell, but anyways, it is what it is. I'm just going to replicate the same for the sleeve. So yeah, that's what I didn't mention. I'm going to rip the sleeve back. Also, you can see the hole there because I didn't pick up my stitches on this one. Initially, the sleeve I've done twice already because I had already knit it. I wasn't happy with my decrease rate, which ultimately was probably fine from the get-go. Oh, I'm so mad at myself. But anyways, I had already done the sleeve and then I ripped it back and then I redid the sleeve and now I'm going to rip it back again. But the first time I had tried to like pick up these holes, but I was doing it wrong. And then the second time I was like, I'm just going to leave them because it looks so messy and just stitch them up afterwards because I felt like that would look nicer. But then this side I've picked up correctly and you can see there's basically like no hole. So that's where we're at on the zipper sweater. The other thing that I did on this as well is I crocheted in on my neckline. So let me show you here. So I've crocheted like a bit all the way along this neckline. I do need to redo it because it is a little bit like cinchy. I've not done it like the most neatest, but it's fine for now. But what I was finding once I put the zipper in and I put it on, the fit of it just looked really, really weird, and I couldn't work out what was going on, like what had happened. Like it just didn't fit right. And what was happening is because of the weight of the piece and because I've done my neckline a lot wider, the whole thing was just like opening out and cinching down, and then from the weight of the zipper, the piece is just like falling forward at the same time, which means I was getting like bagginess in this underarm area because the whole sweater is like coming forward and down. Now this is really my fault because this yarn is a super soft and drapey yarn. It's got no structure to it at all. So I've had to kind of just reinforce that neckline by like putting a seam in there to stop it from stretching out so that it sits on the body right, and that totally fixed the fit. Like it's made the fit so much more better. I'm still not happy with the collar because it does kind of sit weird on the back of the neck. It kind of flops out, and I don't know how to stabilize the back. It looks fine on the front, but the back kind of like, it just like, again, it's just got too much weight, and the yarn's just like too drapey, and it just can't support itself. So I don't know how I'm meant to like kind of stabilize the back now that everything's like seamed in and down. So I don't know, we'll just have to see what happens with this one. But this piece is, to be honest, I should have just followed the same as what I did for the first one instead of trying to like change it again. I don't know, it's not quite coming out how I really wanted to. But anyways, it is what it is. I just want to get her finished and hopefully get somewhere, maybe like 1 or 2 wears out of her before it gets too warm. So that's my goal, but we're not too far off from finishing. We just have to redo the sleeve and then just knit some more on the body, and then it's done. Like, the hardest things are done, but it's the ripping back and redoing is just like, but I need to do it, because the better I can get this fit, the more likely, I want to like it. So yeah, that's the zipper sweater. All right, next whip we have is our other jumper whip at the moment, which is our Cumulus Blouse O-neck by Petite Knit. So this one calls for 2 strands of lace weight to be held together, which says equals an Aran weight yarn, and it's meant to be knit on 4.5mm needles for your body, and all your finishings are done in a 4mm needle. Again, a very basic raglan construction, knit top down, and it's just an all-over stock knit with I-cord finishings. So this one's got a little bit of a different start when you start constructing it. So you do cast on, and then you establish like your raglans, but you're knitting flat, so you don't join in the round immediately with this particular one. Think of like a raglan cardigan, and how you would start that is how you start this particular piece as well. So you knit flat for a bit, and that's to, I guess, create like a deeper neckline. And so once you get to a certain point, you then join in the round, and then you continue to knit your piece down, doing all your raglan increases until you reach the right yoke depth. You then separate out body sleeves, continue to knit down in the body, finish off with some I-cord bind off, collect your sleeve stitches, knit them down with some gradual decreases, and then again finish with the I-cord bind off there too. So for my piece, I am using Drops Brushed Alpaca Silk yarn, which is 77% alpaca and 23% silk. This is in the colour number 32 Moss. I did buy this for a different project, and then we didn't love it. So here we are with the Cumulus Blouse, which is not something I ever thought I was going to knit, but I don't know, it's growing on me a little bit. And the more I knit it, the more it's growing on me. I'm making mine, or I did start making mine in a medium. Now, I think last time you saw this, we hadn't yet separated. So I had knit to size medium, then I blocked it, and I was like, oh, I don't have enough depth. And the whole thing's looking, again, just maybe a little bit too small. So I ended up just kind of continuing with the raglan increases until I reached the large stitch count. So I don't think my sleeves are quite on point for stitch count, but the body is, I think, sleeves off by like 1 or 2 stitches. But we're more or less at a large. So cast on was a medium, rest of the piece is like a size large on this one. I've spent a lot of time on this since you last saw her. So I've spent 31 hours on her over the last month, a total of 44 hours on this particular piece. And yeah, like I say, I have now separated body and sleeves, and I've knit down in the body. We still need just a little bit more length, but I think I want this one to be a little bit of a cropped jumper. So I kind of just knit until I finished the ball, and then we picked up for our sleeve. Now, I have knit the sleeve twice now. I don't know what it is about sleeves lately. I did the zipper sweater sleeve twice, 3 times that one sleeve soon. This one I had to rip back and redo as well. Again, ChatGPT like threw me off here. So I was kind of like looking at some of the project pictures, and some people have said the sleeve's like quite narrow as well. And I was like, yeah, it kind of does look like it's quite a fitted sleeve. So I was like, maybe like, since I've kind of sized up in mine, it's a little bit more baggier, and I was like, maybe a baggier sleeve won't look too bad, one that I can kind of like maybe cinch in like towards the cuff. And so I put it into ChatGPT how I should do my like decreases, and it basically told me to like space them out, and then in the lower like, I don't know, third of sleeve do more rapid increases. So we still got the same number of stitches decreased over the course of the sleeve. The spacing was just weird. And when I finished it, I had estimated how many rows I needed as well, like based on my row gauge and the kind of length of sleeve that I wanted. I overestimated a little bit. So when I finished knitting my sleeve, I blocked it. It was a little bit too long, but more importantly than that, I did not like how the shape of the sleeve had come out. It just didn't look that great. And so for that reason, I did rip back the entire sleeve and redid it. Now I will say this yarn, I was worried to rip it back, and it actually wasn't too bad. It is a little bit sticky to itself, but it's really not that bad. I did not like rewash the yarn before using it because it didn't really have much of a kink to it, but it is a little bit, I guess lumpy is the best way I can phrase it. Like the way that the alpaca fluffs have like clumped based on, I guess, where the stitch was, has given it a bit of a lumpy feel. You can definitely feel it more than you can see it. I'm hoping blocking will fix that and it will just redistribute the fluffs a little bit. But yeah, it is, I mean, if I point it out to someone, you'd notice it. Otherwise, you wouldn't notice the difference in the yarn, that it looks a bit funky. But yeah, so I did that. At the moment, this particular sleeve here, I am at the point of being ready to bind off, and I've just got a little bit of yarn left over. I'm going to just pause here and not bind off, and I'm going to do my other sleeve, and then I'm going to block it and just decide on the sleeve length once I've got both sleeves on, because I am finding as well with my sleeves, they're coming out a little bit short. So I forgot to mention this on that Weekend Glow sweater. I think I might rip back and re-knit the sleeve just a smidge longer because I've got a little bit of that black yarn left over, so I can do it. But it sits perfectly fine in length, like it's just sitting on the wrist when I like stand still with my like arms down by my sides. But as soon as I like bend my elbows or like sitting at my desk, like it kind of just like ends up riding up to like here. And so I'm like, oh, if I add like an extra like 2 centimeters of like length, or maybe just a little bit more, I feel like it's just going to sit and feel a little bit better. And I was humming and hurrying about it, but then I was like, no, I think I'm going to do it and make it like perfect. And since I have that yarn left over, like I can do it. What I'm not sure on that one is whether or not I want to like do sweater surgery situation where you like touch your knitting and then just knit, you know, pick up the stitches, knit a bit and like seam it back together. Or if I just want to like rip back from my bind off, rip back all the ribbing and just redo a little bit more, which is what I'm leaning towards doing because it's not like a huge amount of work to rip back and redo a little bit of length on the sleeve. But I don't know, let me know if you've done the sweater surgery situation and whether or not you recommend that. I'm keen to know. But anyways, those sleeves are just a smidge. I thought they were perfect, but they've now turned out just to be a smidge short. The zipper sweater, like the first sleeve, I also thought was going to be a perfect length, and then once I've got some weight on the other side, I think it's come out just like a little bit too short again. And the oversize of that jumper, like it can definitely lend itself to having an extra long sleeve. So it's kind of like, I'm just going to leave this one not bind off, even though there's not a lot of weight to this particular fabric. I think I'm just going to wait till I knit the other sleeve and then bind off. I think that is the better idea, but ultimately I think I need to add a smidge more to my sleeves when I think they're perfect. Just add another centimeter or 2 and then they will be perfect. But yeah, that's where we're up to on our Cumulus blouse. The sleeves be sleeving me. Okay, now we're going to move into our summer pieces. So this is my Sunshine Tee by Andrea Gaughan. Did I say that right? calls for light fingering. The pattern calls for knitting for olive yarns, and it's meant to be knit on 3.25 millimeters for the body section, and then your finishings are done in either a 2.75 or a 2.25 millimeter needle. Construction is, again, I keep saying it's fairly simple, but it may not be fairly simple to everyone, but this is, think drop shoulder situation is how this is constructed. So it's knit top down. The yoke part is knit flat. It has I think it's called a set-in sleeve, but it's the same kind of construction as a drop shoulder. It's just not dropped, and it's just an all-over stockinette stitch. You knit your yoke section flat, and then you join it in the round, and everything else thereafter is knit in the round. So this one, you start by casting on the back panel, and you knit that trapezoid kind of shape piece. Now this one is done using German short rows to get the curve in the fabric instead of doing increases. And that, I don't know exactly the value in that. I think it just gives a more gradual curve. I'm not sure. But yeah, that kind of slope is created by German short rows. You then pick up for your little shoulder pieces. So you knit the little shoulder piece, doing your shaping for your neckline on either side. Bring your two shoulders together. You create your front piece and continue to knit down. As you're knitting down on the front and back and you get towards the underarms, there is some increases to get a bit of shaping for that underarm area. Once you've joined in the round, you continue to knit down till you're happy with the length, and then you finish these ones with a folded stockinette hem. It does recommend that you do a decrease round before doing the hem, but that is optional based on you. You then pick up for your sleeves. There is again German short rows to shape the shoulder cap part of the sleeve, and then you just continue to knit in the round and then do the same finishing as you did on the body. And then lastly, you pick up for your neckline, and it's a stockinette neckline as well. The neckline you do pick up from the wrong side, is it? Yeah, so your cast on stitches kind of like poke out, and it creates a little bit of a decorative seam appearance on this one. It's a really little detail that I didn't notice first time, but I think it's a nice detail on this particular piece. Now for my one, I am using Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino. It's my first time working with this particular yarn, and I've got this in the color Mole. I did end up sizing down in my needles to a 3 millimeter because I just didn't like the fabric on a 3.25 millimeter. It was just looking a little bit too gapey. So I did size down to get a more dense fabric, and I'm liking how it's coming out so far. This fabric's looking really nice. But because I sized down, it does mean I'm like well off gauge. So I am knitting this pretty much to a size F, and then for the body section, I've cast it on fewer stitches so that I can bring it down a size for the body. So this should give me like 10 to 15 centimeters of ease. I did try it on, and I'm concerned it might end up being a little bit too big, but I think I need to knit a little bit more fabric, and if it is coming out too big, I might do some shaping on the sides to correct that, but I'm hoping that I don't need to do that because I don't want to do any more math or thinking on this particular piece. I've done enough. But yeah, this is how far we are at the moment. So not gonna lie, once I've got to the body section, like, because there was a lot of like thinking and math, and I was trying to work out, make sure all of my pieces coming out to the correct measurements as per the pattern. Now that I'm in like the body and just doing plain stockinette, it's a little bit more boring. So I haven't really worked on this that much since joining it in the round. It's just kind of dropped off my radar a little bit. Which I need to finish. Actually, I think I want to finish my jumpers first, and then I want to get onto this because I am going to run out of yarn for this. So I need to kind of guesstimate how much yarn I'm going to need to finish this particular project. Otherwise, it might just be a singlet at the end of the day because I may not have enough yarn to put sleeves on. We'll have to see. But since you last saw her, last time she was just like a back panel and nothing else, so we've done quite a bit since. I've spent 20 hours on it since last time, total of 37 hours on this particular piece. And yeah, I've got this much yarn left. I'm just going to continue to knit the body down, and then I think I will pick up for my neckline, see how she's fitting, And then I kind of want to do the sleeves and then finish off the body, but then I'm just concerned about like if I have to buy more yarn, is it going to be the same color? And if it's not, is it going to be more or less obvious if I have maybe sleeves in new yarn and body in old yarn? You know, like that's what I'm trying to like figure out, but I just want to know how much I can get out of what's left. I think I've got about 10 grams of yarn left here, so I'm just going to put a stitch marker in and see how many rounds that I get out of this last 10 grams, so I can kind of estimate how many more balls to get to an appropriate length in this particular piece, and then I have to somehow guesstimate for my sleeves. But yeah, I don't know. The armholes for this look huge, and I'm a little bit concerned that my piece is coming out much larger than it should be, but then at the same time I've checked the measurements and it's right. So I don't know. I'm feeling a little bit cautious about this one. But anyways, that is where we're up to on our Sunshine team. I'm not going to dwell on her anymore. She's not been a focus, but she will become a focus because we need to sort out our yarn. All right, and last whip. Oh my gosh, hopefully this is not coming out to be such a long video, but as always, I end up casting on something new, and the new item gets most of my attention, and this is my latest new item. Do you recognize her? You might recognize her from the back piece. Yeah, does that look familiar? This is my Salty Days sweater. It's a pattern by Kuto Vikika. It calls for a lace plus a DK weight yarn to be held together. It does say equals DK, but with it is a lie. It does not equal a DK. It equals like a worsted or an Aran weight. Although the pattern does say you can actually knit it with a single strand of DK weight yarn if you choose to, but it says do a gauge swatch, and I will touch on that in a second. Anyways, it's meant to be knit on 5mm needles, 3mm for the finishing details. It is knit top down. It is a drop shoulder style construction in all over kind of texture. So you got a lot of ribbing and you've got some lace details and a little bit of cable in there as well. Because it is drop shoulder, we are knitting our yoke flat, so as with the Sunshine tee, same kind of construction apart from this one was done with increases. So you're knitting that kind of like trapezoid shape. You can see it here where the eyelets are. So you're knitting like a trapezoid shape back panel. This one is done by doing just standard increases, which is what I've done for all of my drop shoulder pieces so far. You then continue to knit down and you start doing some of the patterns. You've got eyelet round, and then we start with the diamond lace pattern there, and then another eyelet round. You then pick up for your shoulder, you do an eyelet round or your ribbing over. This is a 1x2 rib, by the way, that you see here. And then you do some shaping. This one actually calls for some shaping on this back shoulder piece here. You meant to do some decreases. You can see I have not done that on mine. In the pattern photo, I don't love how the decreases look. It kind of looks like it pulls a little bit at like the sleeve seam, kind of like just pulls a little bit on that rib where that last decrease kind of is. And because I'm knitting this in a cotton, I just don't think it's going to look that good, so I kind of just omitted that from mine and adjusted my stitch counts. But yeah, you do some increases on there, and then you do decreases on the back shoulder and then increases on the front to shape the neckline. You then move on to your eyelets and then your diamond lace, same as the back, and that will be your yoke piece done. If you do want to add any additional length to your yoke, you need to do it in this ribbing section at the start before you move on to your lace work, because once you start your charted patterns, it keeps going. You don't have another opportunity to kind of add in rows. So I would recommend, there is no schematic, so I would recommend checking all the rows in your row gauge to make sure that you're kind of going to get a similar depth yoke as to what size you're doing in the pattern, so that if you need to add any additional length, you can do so in that section. Anyways, once you've done all of your like lace bits on the yoke section, you will join the piece in the round. So you cast on some extra stitches for your underarms. You move on to the next chart, which is the chart with the cables and the like garter stitch, which kind of reminds me of like waves. There's another chart after that, which is the diamonds again. So there's 3 charts in this particular pattern. So you've got your diamonds when you're knitting flat, you've got your diamonds when you're knitting in the round, and you've got that cable and garter chart as well. The diamond pattern where you're in the round is the one that everyone seems to have an issue on. So we'll see when we get there to whether or not we experience the same. But once you've done all your chart work piece, you return back to this 1x2 rib. Knit down. Again, you can add extra length to the body section if you need to at that point, and then you move on to a 1x1 twisted rib and bind off to finish. You then have to pick up stitches for your sleeves. You're knitting the same 1x2 ribbing all the way down. There are some decreases that are worked into the sleeve that I have to reread it to make sure it makes sense, but it seems like they're randomly placed at first glance, but I'm sure it's to make sure that the rib kind of stays in the rib pattern. But once you get down towards the bottom, you do this like diamond lace motif with the eyelets again, and then you finish off with your ribbing and bind off. I think it does recommend tubular or Italian bind off in this particular one as well. And then lastly, you pick up your stitches for your neckline and you do your 1x1 twisted rib for your neckline, and it's meant to be a folded over collar. So for mine, as I did touch on, I am knitting this in cotton. So this is the Bendigo Willow Mills cotton. It is 8 ply, and this is in the colour 887 Latte. Now, I made a mistake when picking this particular yarn. I purchased it quite some time ago with this pattern in mind. And I think I just saw on the pattern that it said equals DK and that you can use DK weight strand. So I bought the 8 ply cotton with that in mind, but in reality I probably should have brought the 10 ply cotton to get something more closer to gauge, because yeah, we are way off gauge. So I did a few like swatches in this cotton, and look, because it is a cotton, it doesn't bloom in the same way that a wool will. So knitting with a loose gauge, it doesn't look the greatest. So I have gone with a 4mm needle, which is the recommended needle size for this particular yarn. I'm not going to lie, I think I liked it better on the 3.5mm needle than before, but I don't want to go too tinsy tiny. I was also concerned that I might not have enough yarn, but considering how much progress I've already made on this, I think I will be fine in terms of yarn. But yeah, because I am so far off gauge, I had to make a lot of edits to this particular piece. So in terms of size that I'm making, it's technically somewhere between a 2XL and a 3XL to get something similar to the medium size. Now I wasn't 100% sure what size I should pick with this one, because it recommends, what's the ease on this one? I'm pretty sure it was like 15 to 20 centimeters or 25 centimeters. I can't remember what the recommended ease was, but I'm pretty sure it was around 15 to 20 centimeters. But the size, if I went with a medium, I would get 25 centimeters of positive ease, and if I went down a size to a small, I would get like 14 centimeters. So we're like either too much ease or like not enough ease. I really want that around about 20 centimeter mark is the ideal amount of ease that I really wanted. So I have loosely based my measurements on the size medium, but my body stitch count, I'm aiming for that 20 centimeters of ease, so it's a little bit less. So hopefully we kind of get the desired outcome. But I had to use something in the pattern to use as like a measurement guide. So I've had to go through and check all the stitch counts, all the row counts and everything like that, versus the gauge to work out how many centimeters my yoke section should be, for example, so that I know how many rows like extra I need to add in to kind of meet the similar measurements. So it would have been nice if there was a schematic that was more than just, there is one that's just like, here's the body circumference and here's the sleeve circumference, like super duper basic. But there's nothing to say like how long your armhole should be or anything like that. So that's a little bit frustrating in terms of having to work out size, but it's the thing with Kuto-Vicky's, well, can I say it right? Kuto-Vicky's patterns is she does ultimately very, very basic constructions and slaps a pretty like texture or something on top of it, right? Like color or texture on top of a very, very basic pattern. So it means it's actually not that hard to modify. Particularly this one's not been too challenging to modify. My back piece, I started from my body stitch count, made sure I could get a chart fitting within that stitch count, and then I kind of worked upwards from there to get like how many stitches I wanted to cast on and all that jazz. So my shoulder piece here, I ended up doing the same amount of increases, as the 2XL, which means for picking up and following shoulder instructions, it was a lot easier because it's basically just following that 2XL size. I just had to add a little extra length in between to make sure that my shoulder up here was coming up to the right length and down here is kind of coming out to the right length as well. So I have had to make a couple changes there, but ultimately it's not been too hard to rework the sizing on this particular piece. But yeah, as you can see on this, I've done, how many hours have I spent on this actually? I spent 17 hours on this so far. So I knitted my back piece, I've knitted my shoulders, I've joined the front together. I'm up to the point of starting the eyelets and the diamond bit from like here on the back, so that's where I'm up to like on the front. So this hopefully aligns nice. I might have to try it on and just make sure I've actually got enough length, because oh no, it's aligning. Yeah, looking all right. Because yeah, I just need to make sure it's going to fit, because this sleeve, not gonna lie, I haven't blocked it. I've blocked the kind of back trapezoid thing because I use that basically as my gauge swatch. But I haven't reblocked it since doing like the charts. So maybe I need to do that and just make sure that it's going to actually be deep enough, because that armhole, it's probably going to be a bit shallow. When we add a little bit extra on there, it might be fine. I don't know. I mean, if I look at my sunshine tee, wherever I just put it, this armhole is huge. Like, huge armhole. Like, you can see how long that is versus my Salty Days. It is like nothing in comparison. Nothing. Ooh, that really concerns me actually. See how much difference there is in our like armhole depths. So actually, I might have to just block this actually and recheck that this is going to come out fine. I'm a little bit nervous now that that's not going to be long enough. It's come out to the right length based on the pattern, but maybe it's just meant to be that short. I don't know. Oh my gosh, what do I do? I hate it when this happens, when you like got such a small amount of fabric on the needles and you just like, oh, what do I do? Do I continue? Do I correct? Do I trust in the pattern? I don't trust in her patterns, I'm not going to lie. I was a little bit unsure about actually picking up this pattern. If I didn't, I had brought this yarn, like I say, ages ago, so I had already had this pattern in mind, but based on my experience from like the Arctic Lights pattern, I'm just not that impressed with her patterns in general. Like that Arctic Lights one had a lot of errors in it. And so I was like, do I want to do this one? I already know that people have issues with this, just be like reading the Ravelry notes. We all know that everyone has issues with the chart on the body. We all know that the sleeves come out quite skinny. By the way, the sleeves is basically 2 stitch counts for sleeves. So I would probably recommend just sizing up in the sleeve, because it seems like quite a tight sleeve if you are knitting. It's basically like, I think extra small has, or extra small, whatever small sizes, has its own size, and then small, medium, large, up to I think 2XL, it's like one, all use the same stitch count, and then like the largest sizes use a different stitch count, which the larger sizes seem like a more average kind of stitch count, that based on like my other projects, I'm talking DK weights here though, based on the stitch counts I've used for other DK weight projects, that kind of aligns. So I feel like the sleeves are purposely quite skinny on the pattern, but that's your preference. You do what you want to do. But yeah, that's my Arctic, oh my god, now I'm getting the names wrong, Salty Days sweater. This is also the first time that I'm working with cotton. It's fine. It's really nice and soft. To be honest, if you didn't tell me it was cotton, I probably wouldn't even guessed. It's been really easy to work with. It doesn't hurt my hands or anything like that. Like, it's fine. So yeah, but this is going to be a cotton jumper, and I kind of am making it in the mind of being more of like a summer evening jumper, but I don't know how it's going to wear, but we'll see. I know a lot of other people have made this jumper in cotton, and I think the pattern itself, like the look of the lace and the eyelets and everything like that, it leans like to a summery cotton kind of vibe, the jumper as well. Alright, so that's all of my current WIPs that I have. Do I have future plans? Yes, I do. I do have some future plans. I'm not going to go into them in huge detail right now, but because I know I'm going to run out of that Knitting for Olive yarn that I'm using on my Sunshine Tee, I've got 2 other projects that I've got Knitting for Olive yarn reserved for. So I kind of want to get started on those knits like ASAP, just in case I run into a similar problem whereby I end up sizing down on my needles, and I already know for one project I am going to do that. In fact, I can show you that one. So this is the start of my redo. Oh, I can even see her tiny little triangle. This is the start of my camisole number 4. Is she number 4 or is she number 6? I'm pretty sure it's camisole number 4. You'll see it right here. It's by My Favorite Things Knitwear. I already made one of these, but I used like a Temu silk. And since I was placing an order on Knitting for Olive, I was like, oh, maybe I'll remake it in proper silk. And to be honest, I don't know why, because although I like the top and it will easily fit into my wardrobe, it is not necessarily something I normally gravitate to. So like I will get wear out of it, but it's not going to be a high wear item. But anyways, for whatever reason, I was like, fuck it, let's remake it and let's use the suggested yarn, being that this is the Knitting for Olive pure silk. I think the color is called Coal. It's black. So I did do this little like gauge swatch ages ago because I was just so excited to actually like knit with it, and holy moly, this is fiddly to start because it's doing provisional cast on. I also don't love how gapey this is. Like you can see right through this wall. So this is knit on the suggested needles, which is 3.5. I think I'm definitely going to have to size down, and I want to adjust the center column. I don't even know which way is the right side, which way is this way is the right. Yeah, this way is the right side. I'm going to adjust it to the center column. You can't even tell on this particular lace, but the center column is broken rib, but I think I will change that to be stockinette and just adjust the ribs on the side so that it all flows nicely when it comes down to the end of the base of the triangle. But yeah, I definitely think I need to size down because this is just so thin and gapey and see-through. And I know once you like hold it up against like your skin, it doesn't seem that see-through, but I don't know. I don't love how it looks currently on my little swatch. So we might make some adjustments to that. I'm also going to do like flat, thicker straps. So she's going to be a redo. So I want to get onto her because I want to size down on my needles. I may end up also running out of yarn on this, and I don't know if I want to buy more yarn. So we'll see what happens with this because, yeah, I don't know. We're doing that anyways. The other one that I'm doing, I don't have the yarn on hand, but it is the square neck cami, I think it was called. I can't remember who it was by the top of my head, but again, you'll see it here. That's the other project that I'm going to get started on because I have yarn for that. I'm less concerned that I'm going to run out of yarn for that one for some particular reason, but yeah, I want to get those started. I'm probably going to get started on this one first because I've already kind of got my little swatch there. So those are definitely future plans. I'm going to get started on those ASAP, and then we'll see what else kind of comes naturally. I really want to get started on a cardigan. I think I want to make my no frills cardigan, which is a petite knit pattern. I think I want to get started on that, but we'll see if that happens. Because at the moment I'm going through a bit of a phase of like, I just want to rip back and remake a few things that don't fit very well. I want to get started on those but at the same time I still want to knit some things that's like fun for me to knit and not just like remaking stuff because it's a little bit boring, right? So I think once I finish all my jumpers, I'll have my cardigan as my other like jumper project. I'll have one remake project, and I'll have the other, you know, my salty days and stuff. So yeah, that's going to be all my future plans. Anyways, I talked on for so long. This is it's going to be another but I hope you guys enjoyed hearing about all of my updates. Let me know what you're working on because my inspo and my mind is always changing on what I'm going to make. I buy yarn with a plan in mind, and I'm finding that I keep changing my mind on things like left, right, and center at the moment. So let me know what you're knitting on because I might want to steal your idea. Let me know if you've done sweater surgery before and whether or not I should rip back the sleeves of my what were you called, Weekend Glow, if I should just rip back the ribbing and a little bit extra length, or should I cut and insert some fabric? Let me know what's best to do there. And what else? Let me know how many sleeves you've knit in this past month too. I would like to know because I feel like I've done too many sleeves and have to do too many more sleeves. I'm sick of sleeves. Full stop. Anyways, if you do like this, do those YouTube things. All of the pieces that I'm working on will eventually make it into project vlogs, so they will come out too when they do come out. Otherwise, yeah, if you like these, I do these monthly updates. Monthly. Oh my gosh, so self-explanatory. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye. There's surprisingly a lot. Can you hear all that tooting? So this was the wrong name. Oh, it's a terrible one. Wow, it's easy to work with. It's not hard on my. Oh my god! Can you stop making noises?